People that work in his house, people that fly his airplane, people that captain his boat, sometimes earn twice what other people who do the same thing make because he likes them. They do a great job, and he doesn't want them to leave. When this guy takes his airplane someplace, there are 3 people he's paying on it. There's a flight attendant and there are 2 pilots. I don't know what the total amount they're paid is, but it's also the amount that those 3 people are paid, if they were one person, would put them in the top 1%. All you have to do is earn $387,000 a year in America, and you are in the top 1%. If you earn $50,000 a year or more, Joshua, in a year, you're in the upper 10% of earners in this country. The top 1%, bottom of that is $387,000. When this guy gets on his airplane, in addition to these 3 people, there's what's called the line crew. They work at the gas station that puts fuel in the jet. That fuel costs anywhere from $4 to $5 a gallon, and it takes so much that you buy it by pounds. People who work for the gas station also are paid by the guy who owns the airplane. So in addition to the 3 people that are on the airplane, there's probably 5 or 6 servicing the airplane. Then there's the mechanic in the hangar that services the airplane when it's not flying. There are probably 10 or 12 people being paid to make sure that airplane can fly whenever it needs to. All of them make 6 figures, except the line crew. Not sure what they make. They're paid by another company, but the company charges a lot. Same thing with the boat. Same thing with the house. By the I mean, the idea that the rich are not spending their money is so absurd. If the rich were not spending their money, we'd be a third world country. If the rich weren't spending their money, there would be no jobs. Unemployment wouldn't be 9%, it'd be 100%. Now, I don't know where you get the idea that because there are rich people, you don't have a chance. But it's precisely because there are rich people, and what we have here is a meritocracy. I mean, there are some people who are rich because they inherit it, but most people who are in the 1% are there because they work harder than anybody else, because they found what they love doing. And what they do really isn't work to them. They can't wait to get up every day, including on Mondays, to go back to work because it's what they love most in the world. And since they love it, they happen to do it better than most other people do. And that's how they end up making a lot of money. They provide a service or make a product, do something that enough people want and love that it supports them. Now, there are a lot of other people out there who criticize people like this, saying that they're not paying their fair share, that they're not, that they're selfish or they're greedy or what have you. There's another thing, too, that you need to know, that the people in this top 1%, it's not the same bunch of people. It changes. People move into and out of the various categories of wealth all the time. I knew a guy who lost $200 million twice in his life and earned it back a third time. He was in the commodities business. You are going to be getting out of college soon, and somebody's told you that there's no future for you because unless you can find a way to get the rich to unlock their money, there isn't anything left for you. You couldn't be more wrong. If you would change your thinking and realize that whatever it is you've learned in college, if it's what you love, and if it's not what you love, go do what you love and forget what you learned in college. Find out what you love. Go do it. Do it better than anybody else. And you'll find that there will be all kinds of people who will pay you to do it. If you do it well, if you do it dependably, if you make it well, if you make it great, if you make it dependably, if you can be counted on, if you can be trusted, if your stuff is great, if your work is great, there will be people who will pay you more than you ever dreamed.
And Rush, I get that. It makes sense for the individual, and I'm happy for me. You know, and I understand that for me personally. But when I'm talking about my generation as a whole, the way I see it, there's only a certain amount of money. And the way I see it, the top 1% have invested in all the vehicles possible to make sure they continue to make more money.
No.
And because they have more money in these vehicles, they can make money faster. So as you get the argument,
Joshua,
the rich get rich. Yeah.
At any point that you want to point to in American history, there's always been X amount of money. But every day it's different. Hopefully, the U.S. economy grows. It's an expanding pie. It gets bigger. What's happening to our economy now is it's shrinking. It is shrinking because people running the government have the incorrect policies. They are funneling all the money to government, Joshua. They're doing everything they can to take money out of the private sector where you are going to earn it. For you to do well, the government has to get smaller, and the money that they're taking from people has got to be kept with the people because they can grow their own businesses and thus hire more people. But at any point, any generation, somebody in any generation could have said, as you just said, somebody's got all the money. There's only so much money. On any given day, there's only so much money. But everybody parts with it. Nobody hoards everything they've got. My point to you was a guy just spends 3 hours a week paying bills. Who do you think he's paying?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Well, how many? But every rich person's doing this. There's not a rich person in the world not spending his money. They can't live if they don't spend the money. There's no way to enjoy it if you don't spend it. They're all spending it.
All right, Rush, can I give you a quick prediction?
Are you hearing anything I'm saying? I'm really trying to help you, because if you listen to what I'm saying, you're going to go out there and be light years ahead of everybody in your generation who's going to be sitting around thinking they're defeated because they've been taught like you have it, there's no more money to be had. But there is. The rich are happy to part with it if you give them something they want or if you do something they need done. The object is you. The objective is you. The person who has to get this done is you. Nobody. Let me tell you, you know what I once did? I'll tell you another story. I used to know, when he was alive, the former Commerce Secretary, Robert Mosbacher. And back in the early 90s, Robert Mosbacher told me that you weren't a player in America unless you had $250 million. If you didn't have $250 million, the rest of the wealth community would sneer at you and they wouldn't consider you one of them. I said, well, would you give me $100 million so I could get in the group? He looked at me. He said, what do you mean give you $100 million? Yeah, I said, if I just had $100 million more, then I wouldn't have to work anymore. I could actually support the way I live now. If you would just give me, he looked at me, what do you mean give you $100 million? Well, you said, and I was performing an experiment. There was no way he was going to give me $100 million, even though he had it times 20. He wouldn't have given it to a member of his family until he died. The point is, nobody gives anybody anything. Everybody who has what they have earns it with work. There's not one power sitting there deciding who ends up with what. Obama would love to be that person, and we're trying to prevent that from happening. But there is not a God, there's not a money God that determines who ends up with what. What you end up with is owing totally to what you do. The U.S. economy is not a zero-sum game. If somebody earns $1, it does not mean somebody's lost $1. If somebody loses a job, it doesn't mean somebody was hired. If somebody was hired, it doesn't mean somebody was fired. It is a dynamic, expanding economy, and it's made for the fit. It's made for the competitive. It's made for those who want to play the game and have something to offer. It's not made for people who think they're owed something. It's not made for people who think the game's rigged. It's not made for people who think life's unfair. You have just as much opportunity as Warren Buffett's had, or as I've had. It's up to you to use it, and it's up to you to recognize that you do have the opportunity. And don't worry about your generation. It's not your problem. Okay. It's theirs. You got enough problems worrying about yourself. If your generation blows it, don't be part of it.
Got it.
Be distinct. Be different. If your generation is going to sit around and be a bunch of slothful takers, don't defend them, and don't feel sorry for them, and don't be part of it. You'll be that much ahead of the game.
Got it. Could I ask one more question?
Yeah, if you take your mouth away from the hand away from the phone so I could hear you.
Can you hear me now?
talking to somebody. He's getting advice. What do you want to ask me?
Yeah, I just want to say, I've been a stockholder since 2008. And what I'm noticing is, although yes, I understand where you're coming from with what's getting paid. I
can't understand what you're saying. I don't know what you're doing out there. You got the phone covered. But I gather you're not here. You've been a stockholder since 2008, and what?
Put it this way: I've been a stockholder since 2008, and what I'm noticing now is that when the average American can't buy the TV from Best Buy, they can't buy. And I know they should be saving them. They should.
Joshua,
yes.
There is no average American. The average American is a myth. The average American is a statistic. People are buying TVs. They're buying them from Best Buy. They're buying them from Apple. They're buying them from everywhere. TVs are sold. You can go buy one today. Go to a mall and you'll find people buying TVs. People are buying everything today. Not as many people. The economy is not doing well. There aren't as many people working and they don't have as much disposable income. Some people, it's their fault. Other people's in this day and age, it's not because of policies this administration's put into effect. But feel like I've wasted my time with you, but I hope that the others in the audience, it's not been a waste of time. Now, you've offered me a great opportunity here, but you're clearly not hearing what I'm saying, or at least you're not acting like you're getting it. I hope at some point that you do, because sadly, as it might be, people like you do represent the future of the country. And if you're going to sit around and be a taker, if you're going to sit around and be bitter, somebody's got more than you do. Somebody's not spreading the wealth or whatever. You're going to be miserable your whole life. And nothing is going to be able to make you happy. You're not going to be able to make yourself happy. Nobody else will make you happy. You're just going to be miserable. And maybe you want to be miserable. Some people do. I don't. I appreciate your holding on.